Sir, we are live now, sir. Please start.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be back, and this is great to be with you guys. Welcome to the course. Thank you so much for registering for the course and for also participating in this live session. This is mainly, we will do it thrice in the course, twice during the course and one post the course. The main reason for during the course is if you have any questions on design thinking itself, any doubts that you have, any even we will try our best to answer it on the forum as quickly as much as possible, but nothing replaces live interaction. We realize that, so we have this twice during the session is on, the videos are on. Post that, just before the exam, just to clear the exam butterflies in the stomach, we will be there to help you out. Will as much assistance as possible we will give you. Siddharth and I will extend our helping hand towards you. Speaking of Siddharth, there is Siddharth. He is there. Say hello, Siddharth.
Hi everyone, welcome to our course and our first live session. I hope you have a very nice time asking questions with Bala sir and getting your doubts cleared. And please feel free to write down your questions in the comment section or your chat box. If you have forgotten to put your questions in our Google form, Bala sir will take them for you here. Over to you, Bala sir. And okay, so quickly moving on to our agenda, what we usually do is I will pick up the questions from the learners which they have posted on our forum or on our Google platform, Google Form, and we will ask them, we'll ask those questions to Bala sir and we'll see what he has to say about design thinking. Okay, Bala sir, up to you if you have anything to share.
No, so design thinking is aimed at practical application. Like many fields out there, it's we insist and we believe, both Siddharth and I, both of us have learned design thinking through application. So through on something that we care about, we want to make a change. We use this process of design thinking. That's how I've learned it. That's how Siddharth learned it. You've also seen the videos in which we've shown through a demo on Siddharth's company's use cases, and shown it to you how we have applied these principles. So that's what we would like to help you out with, and we believe that that's the best way to learn design thinking, to apply it on something that you care about. Over to you, Siddharth. If there are any questions, we can start off straight away.
Yes, definitely. You allow me to. Okay. All right. Our first question, sir, from from Sudeshna, and the question is, how many problems to face and how to solve it?
Okay, this I'm going to take it a very philosophical level because I don't understand the question so well, to be totally honest. So I'm guessing the one way to look at it is how many projects do we do, and how many solutions do we gather at a design thinking level itself. So at a process level itself, how many projects do I do before I can be very confident? Okay. So my thumb rule is, if you have at least made 3 projects and within a reasonable span of time. If you take 3 projects in 3 years, that's very little, right? So if within a 6 months span of time, if you're able to able to solve or help 3 customers or 3 problems, 3 projects, if you can take them up and take it to logical conclusion till the test, you have one prototype and you can actually make some headway into that, then I think you're good for being reasonably confident that you know some few things that in design thinking itself. So that's definitely one at a project level. If you zoom in a little bit and say, oh, I'm looking at problems to solve and how many solutions should I have inside a project, the answer would be more about the problems could be plenty that the customer is facing, the user is facing. You could have, I don't know, one student team, I think they came up with 10 to 12, a laundry list of 10 to 12 problems that they, listed down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 or 12, they had written it down. So now, when they went into analyze, they were wondering which ones do I take? Do I take all 12 of them? I said, if you take all 12 of them, you're going to be busy for a really, really long time. So they want to know what is the real quick short method to get down to what is a manageable level. I would say pick the 2 or 3 most important problems that from a customer perspective, not your own. How easy is it to solve? You'll find the easiest problem to solve. That's not the trick really. This is about human-centered design. So you'll have to look at it from the user customer point of view. Pick the 2, 3 most impactful problems to solve and move on to, after analysis, take the analysis of those problems and then move on to solve, and you generate the solutions for that. Now again, how many solutions, how many ideas do I generate? As many as you can. You have now analyzed the problem very well. You know what the people are going through. You can generate as many as you want. Absolutely up to you. How many ever you can. So the next logical filter would be how many can you make a prototype of in the test phase. Okay, that's the 4th phase, right? Empathize, analyze, solve, and test. EAST, right? So in the test phase, if you can make 2 or 3 prototypes maximum, then you have to down select or combine those idea solutions into a manageable 2 or 3 so that you can make 2 or 3 prototypes and then go forward. Okay, so at a project level, I've told you 2 to 3 within 6 months. At within the project level, you can take 2 to 3 and proceed. So this is how I have tried to answer this. If doesn't answer your question, please feel free to use the chat or in this YouTube session or in the discussion forum if you're watching this recorded.
Awesome. Thanks, Bala sir. So usually we putting your thing in a nutshell, 2 or 3 problems we have to pick, and we have to make sure that the problems are customer centric rather than our own problems, so that they create an impact. We are creating an impact by solving those problems. And solutions, like you said, we have a number of solutions we can come up with. We have to keep in mind the limitations, technical limitations and resource limitations while developing the solution and prototype. So, right, thanks for that answer, Bala sir. Moving on to our next question. What are the differences between design thinking and system thinking? Are they mutually exclusive? When should I use design thinking versus system thinking? Asks Neeraj.
Thank you, Neeraj. That's a great question. So systems thinking and design thinking. So we will start off with so design thinking is something that you can pick up in this course. That's what the course is aimed at. You can find out more about it as the course progresses. But what is systems thinking? Systems thinking is the bigger picture of what we are working on. So loosely speaking, system is meant for a purpose, to fulfill a function. That's what systems are for. The system could be as small as a machine. System could be as large as a government, a country even. Okay, so they are meant to serve a particular function. Okay, now of course I can direct you to our other course, technology forecasting, which is due in January. I'm doing a bit of cross selling, but that really answers what is the system, and we do it in very a long detail. So the course name is technology forecasting. So you can find that on NPTEL from January 2022. You will see the second version of the course. So you will see that. But systems thinking is not focusing just on the system, what we have right now, but also on the interactions with what is around it. So we look at it. So if you think about, and I don't know if you've heard of product service thinking, design also, product or service design also. Product or service design start with what is right now in front of us, which is a machine or some service that we are offering. So if you want to build on it, if you want to develop something on it, we think about that as the starting point. So that's usually product or service thinking. And if you're looking at a system, the one that I defined, that's where we start. Okay, so whereas in design thinking, our exclusive focus is on the human being who's the recipient of the product or recipient of the service, recipient of the output, so to speak. The focus is entirely outward. We look at this human being, person, who is going to receive that output. Okay, that's where the focus of design thinking is. Okay, now oftentimes I've interacted with a professor in Germany who told me that these are actually two sides of the same coin. If you think about it, any product, any service that you see around yourself or we enjoy, our behavior as consumers, customers, users, our behavior seems to be shaped out of these devices. So now the interesting part is these devices, these services are also shaping up or evolving based on our own behavior. So it's mutual. So where do you start totally depends on your own preference. This is my opinion. Of course, in this course also you will see that we start with the human being and then we shape up our services and products based on that. But it's one and the same. You either work with the human being with their behavior and see how to change the product or service, or you start with the product and service and see how to change it, and then see the corresponding change in human behavior, and then change your product and service now. So it's actually a back and forth loop, and we're doing one and the same. So where does system thinking apply the most, and where does design thinking apply the most? I would say it's going to be cyclical. You're going to start one place and end up with the other, and you have to end up with the other anyway. And so I feel that you will have to go back and forth into these. Okay, so that's one part of the answer in terms of systems. Systems thinking is also the interaction between these systems, right? So it's not just one system working in isolation. Like a human being doesn't work in isolation, but a group of human beings interact with each other. Same way in systems thinking, also systems interact with each other. Now it starts getting very interesting and also equally complex, right? So you need to sort of see how to now bring all of this together, and your understanding becomes better. And then when the human being is involved, get back to design. It's sort of interesting. I would say whichever you are comfortable with. If your natural talent is to build relationships with human beings, and you are very good at knowing what people are thinking and feeling, and you can perceive things out of doing, your empathy is very high naturally, I would suggest you should start with design thinking. And if you are the systems person, your domain knowledge is pretty high in systems, and you know how systems interact, or you would like to know more, or you're a natural inclination, start there. Okay, start there. That's the starting point. After you've done your study, though, you have to do the other one. So if you're starting with human centered design, you have to work with systems, you have to build systems, you have to test them. So which means you can't just say, I'll give it off as an idea, systems thinkers can take over. That's only part of the thing, right? So, and same likewise, right? So you build systems, you know how they interact, but you want the human beings also to be involved. Then you will have to go and interact with human beings, put it in front of them. So it's a merger of these two. It's a combination of these two. My opinion is that whichever you're comfortable with, it doesn't really depend on the problem, but it depends on your own. But you will have to do both. That's the that's the magic. That's where the magic lies. Is systems thinking and design thinking put together. That's why we have these two courses: design thinking now, and in the next semester you can take forecasting, technology forecasting, which is essentially systems thinking.
Wonderful. Thanks, Bala sir, for that. Our next question is, you teach us 4 steps of design thinking process, but nowadays so many people use 5 steps of design thinking process like empathy, define, ideate, prototype, test. So is this same or anything else? Asks Harish.
Okay, great question, Harish. Thank you so much for that. This is in fact, I think this is one of the questions that we ask in the multiple choice also. Do we teach a 4-step method or a 5-step method? If you're paying close attention and not Googling and finding the answer, you will know that it's 4 steps that we teach here at design thinking in our course. Okay, so well, the answer is simple. They are equivalent. They are actually very similar in approach. It's similar in thinking, similar in several aspects. Okay, the first three, if you look at it, empathy is empathize is what we say, define is analyze is what we say, ideate is solve in what we say. Okay, so 1, 2 and 3. Okay, empathize, so analyze and solve. Now the difference really comes why one is 4-step and why the other is 5-step is in test. We call it test, but in the Stanford IDEO method they call it prototyping part of it, and test is the next part of it. We combined it together to call it test. Okay, now why only one step for test, and how come there are two here? Is, for me, this is simple. The last part, test. Okay, you can of course do it independently. You can check whether your system really works. If you built an app, you can check whether your app works. It does it satisfy the functionality. Okay, you can of course do that, but it's of no use because this is human-centered design. You need to go back and check with your human beings that originally had this problem to begin with, right? So which means that you're going back to empathize, right? So the last part of test is actually the first part of empathize. So that's why we didn't feel the need to have a separate test method there. The test is actually about building the prototype and taking it for testing. So that's why we sort of combine into one. And also the fact that for us, our inspiration came from the teachings of Lord Buddha in his Four Noble Truths. The last one says, Marga, walk on the path to end the suffering. So for us, the fact that you've started taking action in terms of building the prototype and now going back to the customers and seeing whether it really solves the problem. For us, it's that Marga, the test is that. The real ultimate test is to go back to the customers, to the users, and to check whether it's really solved their problem or not. Does it make a positive impact, positive difference in their life or not? So that's why we have 4 steps here in our method. Whereas in the Stanford method, which is what you will find that the 5 steps of design thinking is. Stanford IDEO was the first one who came up with this methodology by the 5 steps of design thinking. I hope that answers the question. If you have anything further on this, of course, we'll be happy to answer them on the forum or on this chat itself.
Thank you for that, Bala sir. Our next question is, if our assumptions of the subject's feelings in empathy stage may not exactly match with their true responses, then after survey, what would be our next step?
Okay, this is great. Okay, for me, thanks Sujana for the lovely question. For me, this is in empathy is not about the design thinker. Okay, that's the key part. The central focus in this and is entirely on knowing and feeling what the users are going through. Okay, you putting yourselves in somebody else's shoes. That's the key in this. It is not about us. It is not about how great we are or how nice we are or how or what our past has been. Doesn't really matter. It only matters what this person is going through, right? This user, our customer, who is the recipient of our output. Okay, that's where the focus is on. So it's going to be that so that's the one part of it, is that what we hear, what we want to hear, and we see what we want to see. So it's very difficult to cut off that and only truly observe what is going on without adding our own sort of filters to it. Okay, that's one part of it. Now the second part is that these are human beings and these are customers. So to me, the analogy, and this addresses your question directly, is that these are human beings and treat them like babies. Okay, so babies, particularly less than 1 year old, they can't express themselves very clearly, right? So less than a year old, they won't tell you, if you're a caretaker of a baby, they won't come and tell you what they're feeling, right? If they're feeling sleepy or tired or have a tummy ache, they're not going to tell it to you in words, if they're particularly if they're less than a year old, right? So you would never get their true response, and you're using your own words. So we will have to sort of perceive and see what is the exact thing that is going on, which is why we need the analyze. Because in empathy, we're just documenting whatever we see, observe, and we note it down. Now, you brought in another word, survey, which is one of my favorite topics that I can talk about hours. Okay. Now, surveys, particularly through what is that, Survey Monkey and Google Forms, they're all extremely efficient, very efficient. In one day, you can send what, 1,000 to 2,000 people, and if you're even more efficient, you can send it to 10,000 people in one day, and you can even get responses. Maybe in a week, you can get lots of responses. To me, the empathy you will never get through surveys, through these, at least the form based surveys. Okay, the empathy, particularly the feeling part of it, you may understand some problems, you may understand, oh, this is what majority of the people are going through. You may get some hints to that, but the true feeling of what they are feeling, will you be able to get what they are feeling? We can never aim to get from a this form based survey. Okay, it's very difficult. In fact, I would say, I would even go ahead, be brave and say it's impossible. You cannot get what they're feeling through these 5 points and like that, right? So if that is the survey you're talking about, it's not going to work. The survey that you saw Siddharth and team do in the videos are actually interacting with people, with absolute strangers if you can. But to begin with, if you're a beginner in this whole thing, start with people you know, interview them, ask them to do something in part of their, just be bugs on the wall, try to observe them, and then note things down. If we are talking about this kind of survey, spot on. You will have to make observations. They may not be able to tell you what they feel. They may not be able to even express what they feel. Okay, note things down, take pictures, videos with their permission, and then go back to your team, go back to your studios, whatever, and make notes and start seeing some themes. Oh, this they did not do. I wonder why. And you can even go back to the customer user and find out why they didn't do certain things. You can do several of those things and then come back, make your own impressions of why they did what they did, and you will find that there are, and what we are after in empathize space is particularly unsaid or latent needs, things that they have not said. Remember, always keep my the baby example in your mind when you're doing these on field surveys or interviews, when you're going there and finding out, or through a video chat. If your city is under lockdown, you can't move out, use video chat, ask them to use the service or product, and then see what they're doing, make notes, quiz them, ask them questions. If you're unclear about things, then they'll be able to explain it to you. Okay, so as much as possible, do it through observation, note things down, and then move on to analyze, where you can find out through analysis. Okay, so that would be my the sort of answer to this question. Hope it helps you. Again, I'm going to keep repeating this. If you are not clear, please do make sure that you follow up on the forum, or if you're live on the YouTube chat, let us know via this YouTube chat. Yes, Siddharth, that was my trial.
Thanks a lot, Bala sir. To our next question. Okay, I want to know two things. Many of the people who have been the inventors of design thinking were artists and had a deep understanding and background of viewing it as a notion for the human behavior. How does design thinking help in creating a business model for the future generation if it is the present generation who is imagining our lifestyle choices and focuses, or imaging our lifestyle choices and focuses? That is question one. And
Okay, I will go with the first one, and then we'll tackle
Yeah.
the second one. Okay.
Okay.
So I don't know about what you mean by inventors of design thinking, and they were artists. I'm not sure about that. As far as I know, this I could be wrong. As far as I know, and I've read, the people who came up with design thinking, the phrase at least, were people from the firm called IDEO. IDEO. You can look it up. These are people who were working with people, they were in the field of design. They were from all sorts of disciplines. They worked with products, services, and all that, and then they came up with the phrase design thinking, because in fact the origin of what they reason out the design thinking is that this is a process that designers used anyway. Okay, that was their rationale, is that designers used to use it in their design field. What I mean by designer is product design, industrial designers, fashion designers, you can name it. You probably that's the designers that they were referring to. They use this process of the 5-step method that IDEO came up with, and they said this is what the designers were using it. But for us, rest of the world, particularly, they were targeting the business people in the corporate and business sectors, saying, "Hey, you can use this method. We have abstracted it from the design world, and we have abstracted it so that, to me, it sounds like this: the thinking part in the design is what we have abstracted, and this it looks like this." Okay, and at some point of time, they were also it also became a funded project, and they also applied it in social entrepreneurship. They released it as HCD, human centered design, and this is a huge document. You can find, I can look it up, IDEO, and HCD, human centered design. If you look it up, you will find the manual itself, which is for everybody to use. So this is how they tried to popularize the idea of design thinking to the world. So I don't know what you mean by artists. As far as I know, I don't think they were artists. Okay, so let's assume you're talking about people who have modeled design thinking after human behavior. Okay, so granted that it's probably something to do with human behavior. Our own sort of research into the Buddhist teachings have seen some parallels. There, it seems to model human behavior in the sense that whenever people are given problems, they seem to first look at who is using it, acknowledge that there is suffering, that's the empathize, and then we go into the root cause of it. We try to analyze it, and then we try to come up with solutions where to solve it, and then we make something out of it. We walk on the path to end the suffering. That's what our overall thing was, right? So in keeping in mind that it is, let's say it's a model of human behavior, we haven't done real tests on that, but let's say it is that, it can be applied to business models also, in creating business models also, because business models are focused on services or products which need to be sort of built on this foundation of it being useful for a human being. Okay, so business models don't operate in vacuum. For that, you need to have all these in place, the empathize, analyze, solve, and test in place, before you can jump into revenue generation and supply chain, and all that comes later on. Okay, before that, we need to actually have this in place. So once we have that, then the business models can fit in, and now can take it as a efficient way to take it to people. And also we're talking about sustainable. If you're talking about sustainability, how to now bring it back, and how do we fix that? So even that could be a sustainable sort of way to look at it. Okay, so if you're talking about business models of the past focus only on the forward part of it, how about the reverse part of it? How do we make use of revenue? Lots of companies now are focused on what's called corporate social responsibility. So they give it back to society. You know of many companies with foundations which actually give back to society, help them, and in fact, government of many governments across the world give tax breaks based on how much of society do they, how many societal needs do they address after they've done the whole business model stuff. Okay, so it's there, it's already in place, and all this actually is a big chain. So this goes back to our design thinking versus system thinking also, right? So design thinking is about human centricity, then we take it across the business, that which is another system, and then there's the interaction, and then we see it holistically, then it actually shapes up the future as we see it. So it's all one big system, so to speak. So I don't know if I came close to answering this question. If yes, great, I'm happy. Otherwise, please do know, let us know via the forum. Over to you, Siddharth. So second question.
Yeah. The second question is, design thinking is an arbitrary process that requires you to think deeply and have a great understanding of the background behavior. Doesn't educating design thinking make it a less broader approach and make a student channelize in only some of the aspects that the teacher knows?
Okay, excellent question. Thanks, Vanshaj, for both these questions. So uh, I'll take the last part of the question first. Okay, so in every course, every teacher-led training, teacher or facilitator-led training, it is always going to be you're definitely going to have that aspect thrown in for sure, because this is the one person or two people or three people sort of shaping the whole thing. They've thought through a certain design based on their own experience, their own way of what's worked in the past. You're going to see that in every course that you've been in, that I have been in, and Siddharth has been in. So this is not unique to this particular design thinking alone, but it's a generic way in which you are going to sort of have the whole channel focused on what the teacher is going to sort of what the teacher knows and has experience, and we're trying to bring that in. Okay, now one of my professors in the past said, I have lots of experience in this subject. I have so many projects that I've done. Now it's up to you to pull what you want. So I'm here at your beck and call. That's my main job. It's up to you to pull whatever you want. So it's entirely up to the student, up to the learner to pull what they want, which is why we try to have these discussion forums and live sessions also, to see how best Siddharth and I can be of some use to you. But you will have to take that step and pull that from us, and we'll be happy to help. Okay, so that's the second part of the second question. Let me try to see my own interpretation of what your first part of the second question is you've said it's a process that you think may make the student sort of see a very narrow vision of the world itself. Okay, now I don't know if we can use a annotation or anything here. Is it possible to have a whiteboard, Siddharth? Maybe, no?
Yes, Rita.
Okay,
Uh,
so let me try and see if I can show a whiteboard. Yeah, there is a whiteboard. Okay, let's use a whiteboard. So we were trying to see, in terms of process orientation. We are. Is it an arbitrary process? Does it focus you or does it defocus you? Okay, design thinking. Let's see that. This is from the IDEO Stanford model, so I'm going to use that. Is what we call a double diamond shape. Okay, I've seen that in Stanford or IDEO, one of these places. I'm going to draw my best double diamond. Okay, bear with me. Okay, so this is our double diamond. So in empathize, what we do in the first part of it, we actually try and diverge as much as we can. So we are all ears to what the customer or user tells us. So they tell us stuff They exhibit what they are interacting with the product or service. They have their own experiences. We look at different instances, different types of personas, or as we call it, different types of people. We look at them. Could be a student, it could be a teacher, it could be a chef, it could be a manager in a company. We look at all these personas, different types of people. We draw our own inferences. So we are actually let me use a different color. We are in this phase in which we are we are expanding our scope, so to speak. Okay. After that, we move back into analysis, where we try and converge or focus. Okay. So we call this a convergent mode, in which here, now let me use another color. In this, we are trying to narrow down the scope by asking very, very pointed questions, and we're trying to focus back again. Okay. So initially, we opened our mind to see whatever comes through with from our customer. Let it be. We don't know really what the problem is at all. We are going with a blank slate. So we're totally open. We are not constrained by anything. We just open up our mind. Okay. And our hearts too, because this is feeling, thinking and feeling. So we open up our mind and our hearts, and we get the feeling and the understanding. Once we do that, we move into analysis, where we try and focus, narrow it down to what we know, where the exact problem could be. We try to go deeper and deeper and get one or two such key insights. The latent needs, the unsaid needs, is what we try and identify. Okay. After we do that, we move into solve. Okay. Now solve is very interesting, because we open up again. We open up, and we let's say we diverge again, and we say, okay, let's come up with all sorts of ideas. Let's not only focus on implementable or doable ideas. Could be crazy, wild, fantasy ideas too. We now open up again. In this space, we keep expanding our horizons. That is in the solve phase. Now we come back into the test. We say, we don't have all the resources in the world. I don't think I can make 10 prototypes, 25 prototypes, not all the stuff that you're asking me to do. So I will have to sort of focus again and get only 2 or 3 prototypes that is feasible, okay, which is practical, which is doable, and we reduce it down again. Ooh, looks like a mandala painting. Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
I,
So,
yeah.
okay. Anyway, so let's finish the question, and then I'll ask your opinion. So in this, we are trying to do this in trying to converge it down again into 2 or 3 prototypes, and we do the whole process again, all over again. So this process is supposed to guide you and not constrain you. At any time, if you feel this is constraining you, you should stop and say, hey, I want to focus on helping this person, whatever it takes. Design thinking, systems thinking, forecasting, scamper, whatever be the methodology I want to use, let me use it and try to make this person's life better. That's the main focus. Okay, never move away from that. Yes, Siddharth, you have something to say about my brilliant drawing, my mandala painting?
No, no, sir. I was reading about one of the Buddhist things of mandala painting is recently is that they take hours and hours to do a very nice fine art mandala
Ah,
painting, and
okay.
they erase it off once they're done to
Oh,
teach a
okay.
lesson. But
Okay, let me do that also. All right. There you go. Down, boom. But I can cheat. I
yeah,
can bring it back.
bring it back. Yeah, I know the perks of going digital. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah. So that was my trial to answer that question. Very, very interesting. Thank you so much, Vanshaj, for putting your thoughts into such nice questions.
Right. Thank you.
And thanks, Siddharth, for having the name also along with this question. It's really interesting for us to answer them by name.
Ah, yeah. Okay, okay, our next question is from Gautam. The workshop example which is shown in the first week, journey of school and college student. Participants in the workshop are writing the journey with their own assumptions. Won't it lead to biases and unreal journey? In
They're
real
talking
life,
about you.
yeah, I know, I know. In real life, while doing user journey mapping, do I have to do the same? I mean, writing the own journey with assumptions and cross-checking with users and pointing the new outcomes, or else I have to start observing the user from beginning and write the journey.
Okay, so I don't know, time to be very philosophical again. So they say, I don't know why we are off into spiritual tangents, but they say that no, the purest form of meditation is to just observe yourself, okay, without any thoughts of your own. That's what they say. Talk about when they talk about meditation, right? So experts and people who are well versed with the art of meditation. So it's sort of like that in empathize, in particularly in drawing out the journey. The ultimate true form of this journey mapping is about documenting what you see as is, absolutely as is. If you can document it without applying any of your own biases and your own assumptions, your own glimpses into something that you have gone through, I mean, that's the ideal customer journey mapping. Okay, that's exactly from their point of view. Okay, one of the attempts that I remember, I don't know if I talked about it in the course, but one of the attempts that again going back to IDEO, they did for an emergency room patient was to strap a camera to themselves on their temple, on the side of their heads, and they went through the entire emergency room emergency patient sort of journey themselves, recorded the whole thing, and then played it back later saying, what is it that people are going through when they are going visually, what are they going through? They wanted to document the whole thing. Okay, so that's the ideal state, and that's going to be really difficult to attain. So I'm going to give you this the reality of the situation is that of course you will have your own biases, of course you will have your own assumptions, of course you will have everything that you have gone through, and it will reflect in the journey as well. Okay, not all things that the customer says and goes through is going to get documented. Okay, so that is that's the sort of flip side of somebody else doing the work for them. But the positive is there are things that the customer themselves may not know, the users may themselves may not know, and your assumptions, your biases actually may help them, right? So that's what you're trying to do here. And it's very difficult. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of practice, and you do as many as you can, and you get really good at it. After a while that you start seeing these, okay, oh, they went through this, oh, what did you do there? And then you become curious, like a small kid who wants to know about how the world works. Same way you want to know why the customer is doing this way, why are they so many things you can ask and find out why aren't they doing this, or why are they doing this. You can note all those down, your interactions and all that. So of course there'll be assumptions, of course there'll be things that on your own. So one way that if you can't prevent yourself, start with writing your own customer journey for them without even interacting with the user. Okay, you can write it down as you think it is, and then go to the field and see if it is really the case, how wrong you are, how right you are. You can find this out, and then come back and fix it. And believe me, many of my students, many of my people that I worked with, they come back and told me, yes, I changed about 50-60% of the journey, because what I thought and what was really the case was very different. And I went to another journey, I had more insights, I kept adding it. Okay, so you'll get better at this, thinking that what I see, I want to document it and put it out there. Then I will apply my mind. There'll be enough places for you to apply your mind. So get started with this. So my advice to you, if you're starting out, Gautam, is to go there, or if you find it troublesome, oh, what am I going to do with biases? Start with writing your own journey and seeing if that is really the case or not. Check it out. Start doing this with many users, and you will see majority of your customer journey points you will be changing. You will be making a lot of changes based on what you observe, what your hunches say. So we do go with hunches. It's not a art. It's not a science. It's an art also to work with your hunches, with your inner feeling, and see, hey, that's what I think it is. Let me see. Let me make sure that that's what it is. You want to learn. The more you learn, the easier your job becomes later on in the analysis and in the solution. And that's why we spend a lot of time in the empathize and analyze. And solve sort of becomes incidental, because the more we know about the customer base, the more we know about the users, the solution becomes incidental. It's just so easy after that. Okay, I hope this is of help to you, Gautam, and please do let us know if it's not working out, of there's still some things that you want to get checked before proceeding on this. Try it out, give it a shot. Let's see if your own biases and unreal journeys come true, or is it not. You will know if you go on the journey often.
Thank you for that, Bala sir, and thank you for the question, Gautam. Will this course improve my teaching learning process online, especially? Asks Arvind.
Very good question. I think the last 18 months or so, this is definitely playing on all our minds. Will design thinking really help in my online journey? Many colleagues of mine and friends of mine have asked this, particularly with when they're teaching others. How am I going to make this the journey easier for learners and students on the other end? Excellent question. Yes, of course, is the answer. Because particularly in this setup, we make lots of assumptions. Many things that we think that this is what the students are going through, this is what the learners on the other end are going through. We make lots of assumptions. We think this is what it is. When I'm like this, why can't they be like that? But lots of my assumptions have been proven wrong, or things that I've learned from my colleagues. Particularly one example I'd like to give you, based on what my own learning has been in this online mode, especially. One of the learning that I got was, I thought, I am so used to, before this lockdown and from before March 2020, I was very comfortable with facing the learners, facing the students, and I always used to bank on that. Okay, predominant amount of time. I mean, NPTEL, of course, changed that mindset also for me, but primarily it was that I was very comfortable with face to face. So when I did synchronous courses, I expected that students would turn on their camera and would interact with me and all that. So all that good stuff I started expecting. But I found that majority of them actually turned it off. And I thought, oh, this is the typical student behavior of goofing off. They would just turn on the camera and go off, is what I assumed. Okay. And then maybe that's the case, I don't know. But in some cases, when I found out and this happened when I experienced this myself, was one of my the internet that I have has reasonable amount of bandwidth, and can serve me well for many online courses. Okay, so I don't have any limitations in that. But that was under maintenance repair, so I didn't have the use of that. I so used another one which had a limitation in bandwidth in terms of the amount of data per day that it would give me, right? So that was the model that was given to me by the company. So I used that, and within an hour, maybe hour and a half of my lecture, everything started moving very, very slowly. And the students complained, saying that they can't hear me, that this is going on, that is going on. And I said, what's going on? And I realized that I had run out of this data that the company had given me within that 1.5 hours time. Why? Again, that's the empathize part. The analyze part was that the visual, the camera part of it took up a lot of the data, right? It's obvious to many of you, but it wasn't to me. And then I realized that, oh, This is what the students are going through, because they are working on their mobile phones, and their bandwidth can run out if their camera is on. So then I started working with that limitation, saying, hey, I want to see you, but if your bandwidth is limited, just switch it on when you're presenting so that I can see your face when you're presenting, at least during that time. People are okay with that. Students are okay with that. Many of my courses started doing that. And it's that's one part of it. The second part of it is people are very comfortable in groups, smaller groups. And I started using the idea of breakout rooms. Okay. So that is another revelation for me in this last 18 months, is that this breakout rooms, people find it very cozy. They want to interact with other people in the larger group, but they find it very tricky, because when you all switch it on, it becomes noisy. But in a smaller breakout room, they're very comfortable. They open it on, they switch on the mics. Sometimes they even switch on their cameras, and then they interact with each other. So many learnings, and all this came because I put myself in the shoes of the learner and the student, and that's when I felt that they had a good experience. Of course, I still have to. I checked back with many of my students and saw that they were indeed having. I mean, you can observe, right? So that's the key part of empathize, and that really is how teaching learning process can be improved through observation, through noting things down and trying it for yourself if it works, and then taking it back to them. I've tried this all across the globe. It really helped me, and hopefully it helps you as well. So thank you for the question. If you have any sub questions on it, I'll be very happy to answer them on the forum or on the YouTube. Actually, we have only 7 minutes, so maybe on the forum then.
All right. Thanks, sir. Thanks, Arvind. Our next question is from Rohan, and he asks, is it right to assume that the new product should have similar feel to the existing product?
Okay, this is specific to product design itself. This could be okay. So I'm not going to answer it one way or the other. To me, this is a great idea. This is a great assumption that you can test on the field. Okay, so should it be similar or different from the existing product itself? In fact, even a service, do you want to radically change it, or you want to do incremental change? So this is our classic contradiction, or a classic conflict between do I want to go big change, like disruptive innovation, disruptive changes where I radically change the whole thing, or do I want to go stepwise? Are my users going to be comfortable with these stepwise changes? Answer often is not all people like radical changes, but there is a audience for that. And you can refer to this. I don't know what it's called, but you can check out what is called the innovator's dilemma. What you also mentioned is the innovator's dilemma. So do I want to go radical with my changes, or do I want to go incremental? Clayton Christensen is the name of the author, professor, who wrote a book called Innovation Dilemma. You can read this and you can get more. What, in the interest of time, I'm going to keep it short. One of the key things you have to keep in mind is that not all people like radical changes. So you have to be very careful when you're all out changing stuff, when you're changing the look, feel, when you're changing and changing the whole thing at one shot. Not all people are going to be very comfortable with that. One of the quotes that is attributed often to Henry Ford, he said, when people proposed to him saying, can we have multicolored cars? Because there were only black cars back then, right? So he was very happy with black colored cars, and they said, sir, can we have multicolored cars also? So he said, of course, you can have multicolored cars as long as it's in black. So that's what he said. So you can have it in any color as long as it is in black. That's what is often attributed to Henry Ford. Okay, so that's some of the the rationale that customers have. So keep that in mind. They may not like radical changes. The way it is what many people like it, the way it should be. In fact, one of the reasons why we have happy faces in the customer journey map is we want to find out in the current experience. We are all so focused on problem solution, problem, that we forget that there are things that the user is happy with in the current scenario or in the current product or in the current service. You don't want to lose that. Okay, you want to retain that as well, which is one of the reasons why we try to see with our introduction of a product or a service in the solve or the test, we shouldn't lose the happy faces in the customer journey map, which is why in the test phase I often ask learners and students to see what is the modified customer journey map look like in the workshop version. Of course, in our course we don't have that, but in the workshop version we have a modified customer journey map, which tells us that am I losing or retaining the happy faces in the customer journey map. Okay, so keep in mind that. So I'm not answering one way or the other, Rohan. So it is for you to figure out from your users. Okay, thank you so much for that question. There are 3 minutes. Siddharth, do you want to squeeze in another question or do you want to say the goodbyes?
Oh, we can definitely squeeze in another question there. If you're okay.
Okay, I'll try my
Not,
best to honor the
not to
time limit.
disappoint our learners. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Fire away.
Okay. Uh, the question also comes from the higher ground.
Ooh.
Are there alternatives on how to begin DT process? Like in case of the course, we begin with personas, customer journey map, etc. So are there alternative approaches to begin with the empathize component?
Okay, great question. Thanks so much, the higher ground. You certainly are at a higher ground. So for me, customer journey map is a neat little visual tool which tells us two things. One is the what the user is going through at an understanding level. So at an intellectual level, I'm able to, okay, the left part of it is what they say. At an intellectual level, I'm able to understand what the people are going through. Okay, and then the second part of it is I'm able to feel what people are feeling. Okay, these are the main reason why we have the customer journey map. This is the main reason why we have the customer journey map in the empathize. Now if you can attain the same thing, understanding and feeling, without this tools of having personas or customer journey map, you're able to really feel and understand what people are going through without the need for a structured process. By all means, I think you should do it. I mean, are there alternative approaches? Just writing down their story as you see it, storytelling is a great way to do it. So customer journey mapping, if you think about it, is actually storyboarding, right? Storyboarding is putting board scenes and then weaving them all together, right? That's called storyboarding. Now you could use storyboarding. Movie industry, plays have used storyboarding. Ad industry has used storyboarding. You can use that too also for getting your empathy in place. But if you are already very empathetic by nature, you don't need these tools. I can just be with a group of people and I can feel what they're feeling, understand what they're understanding. You don't need tools at all. So that's the ideal way, is to be in a group and get to know what they're knowing. In the absence of that, there are tools like storyboarding and customer journey mapping. You should be able to tell a story. Yeah, I tried my best to answer that in 3 minutes flat.
Yeah, it's exactly 3 minutes. All right, that is time for our session as well. Thank you to all the learners for asking such wonderful questions and very thought-provoking questions. And special thanks to Bala sir for coming online and answering all these questions. In case we missed out any of your questions, please feel free to post them on the discussion forum. Between Bala sir and myself, we will answer them at the earliest. And any questions related to admin related questions, also you can please feel free to post them on the forum. And that is all from our side this for today. Bala sir, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, folks. Keep the interactions going through the forums. We will join you in, I think, a couple of weeks' time. We have another live session. We will see you there. Any questions we have left unanswered, please post it on the forum. We'll be happy to get around to it. And thank you so much for the wonderful questions, and good luck with the course. And let us know anything about the course also you want to see improved, or you want to know more. We'll be happy to sort of get back to you. Okay, thanks, and see you next time on the forum. Thanks, Siddharth, and thanks
Welcome,
Balaji
sir.
for coordinating.
Thank you, Balaji.
Okay, sir. Thank you.